We also want to discuss the Senate inability to pass any legislation despite their big hoorah last week, their big filibuster led by Senator Murphy, I believe, of Connecticut. And today it turns out that they couldn't get anything passed. 4 different measures on the table, 2 from Republicans, Cornyn, and then there were 2 from Democrats, Feinstein and Murphy. And none of the above were able to pass. Now, there are problems with the legislation in general. There are problems with this represents a great intersection of how playing politics, actual ideological differences, but showcasing and grandstanding and being in the position of opposition can lead to very dangerous things being passed on our side on behalf of people who think they're progressive. And everything that I said, if you've been following, it really should make sense to you, because the filibuster the other day really represented 2 different things: an expansion of universal background checks, or the implementation of universal background checks, which is one facet. Then you had the Feinstein measure that really was about not allowing anyone who is a suspected terrorist, a potential terrorist, or anyone on the no-fly list or the terrorist watch list from being able to get guns. It gave us, and when I say us, I'm talking about people who are not Republican, right? That's that broad category of us, right? People who are not Republican. They may very well be conservative, but they're not registered as the Republican. Therefore, they view the Republicans as opposition. This gave us the ability to play politics and to give the impression that we really were getting something done. This filibuster was really about making it seem like we were going to make something happen, going to make some changes after Orlando. And we were doing it on the backs of a piece of, or a policy rather, that is problematic in the first place. The fact that you can be put on a list arbitrarily without any recourse in terms of due process really is problematic. Yet this became the war cry of right now. Right now, Democrats are lamenting over the fact that we cannot use a policy that is extremely unprogressive and a policy that has the potential and has actually discriminated against people of color. The number 1 target of the terrorist watch list is predominantly people of color. And that's the playing politics side of it. Nothing passed today, right? So there's no need to even, whatever. It's no surprise to me that nothing passed, right? And I don't want to say no big deal that nothing passed. It actually, in some ways, could be here's the other thing. All right, let me keep going before I finish that sentence. Let me keep going and unpacking this. So first, we played politics, and we used a policy that was problematic in the first place to make it seem as though we were actually being active in light of the shooting in Orlando. Right. So we played politics with the no-fly list and the terrorist watch list, even though we all can agree that, or we should be able to agree that it's problematic. Now here, actual politics and ideological differences. This type of policy, because it overwhelmingly targets people of color and because it overwhelmingly targets quote unquote potential terrorists, it's obviously going to disproportionately affect people who are Muslim and people of Arabic or Middle Eastern descent, right? Therefore, there's really no problem that the Republicans and conservatives have with this, except for when it crossed the intersection of people getting guns. Because this became a problem for Republicans when it crossed the intersection of people getting guns, even though it had absolutely no sweat off their back, they didn't give two shits about this policy when it discriminated and it infringed upon the rights of people, because it was infringing on the rights of people of color and people of Middle Eastern descent and people who were who were part of the Islamic faith. Because of all that, the Republicans finally found something about this no-fly list or this terrorist watch list that actually bothered them, which was, oh, hell, this is going to keep people from being able to buy guns. And not just for the sake of, oh, I want terrorists to be able to buy guns, but for fear of, oh God, there's a Democrat in office and they can very well put people who cross our demographics, people who are not just Islamic, or people who are not Middle Eastern descent, who are white, right? We could put white, good old country Christian men on this list arbitrarily. And then this policy became problematic. Enter in the position of opposition. Because Democrats and Republicans absolutely have to have something to oppose, once Republicans became in favor of opposing this bad policy for the wrong reasons, for conservative reasons, Democrats all of a sudden said, well, hell, this is something we can really press the envelope on. We can really put this on their neck. We can press down and make Republicans look bad because it looks like they want to give terrorists guns. So Democrats, in order to play politics and to have a position of opposition, they flipped on. They became champions of something that is tremendously unprogressive, something that is horrifically problematic, something that is a vestige of George Bush and our war on terror. We became champions of it. And like always, nothing gets done in Congress. And this might actually be a time, well, you know what? Maybe this shouldn't have passed because we have not answered all the questions about this no-fly list and about this terrorist watch list. And because the terrorist watch list actually can be all inclusive of people you just don't agree with. I think I was reading a tweet from Greenwald from The Intercept that basically said that who was it? Greenpeace or Black Lives Matter in certain occasions have been considered and viewed as terrorist organizations. And they very well could be on this list. So that's why I was not impressed by the filibuster. Not just because I knew nothing was going to come of it, but also because we became champions of a piece of a policy, rather, that is extremely problematic. It's good in theory and on paper, but because there are no clear definitions of what a potential terrorist is, there's no clear definition of how people get on this list and how people can get off of this list and the clear steps of how someone gets off this list. It becomes an arbitrary policy that allows for discrimination. And in many cases, not in many cases, the overwhelming number of cases, this terrorist watch list has affected people of color, particularly people of Middle Eastern descent and people of the Islamic faith. Playing politics, actual ideological differences, and needing an position of opposition really created this cluster F of different hodgepodge interest that really betrayed Republican and Democratic positions that they've held for many, many years. Sometimes just sorting through this shit is mind-numbing. Not because it's so complex, but because you realize how quickly people are willing and able to cut off what they believe in order just to be able to oppose their political rival. I mean, I get the concept of being flexible. I get the concept of what Bruce Lee said. You have to be like water. You have to, if you're thrown in a cup, you have to become a cup. If you're thrown in a smaller place, you have to become that. Be like water. You have to be. But that's in not in terms of what you believe, not in terms of what you fight for, not in terms of what you stand for. You can't just be you can't be all things to all people. You have to have a guiding principle, and our guiding principle has to be one, not just for the catchphrase of civil liberties and due process, but we cannot become the champions of things that are detrimental to groups that are already marginalized. And what that often means is that we cannot become champion of things that are detrimental for people that we don't even like, right? You know, if a piece of policy can hurt a white man, you damn well better believe it can hurt a transgendered woman, a person of color. And so because it may impact negatively someone we dislike, not that I dislike white men, but it seems like the world just, you know, it's particularly, you know, I don't have to explain. But because it hurts somebody that we generally disagree with, we can't then become champions for it, because there's a possibility that it's going to spillover effect negatively and adversely affect someone we support. So the moral of the story is, have your guiding principles, stand by them, and stop just flipping corners for and changing positions just for the sake of being able to oppose your political rival.